Hello and welcome to another video by CT Tech Gaming. This is another Microsoft Flight Simulator tutorial. This is the one that I think a lot of people have been asking me about, but... Oh, hello. Bit of a glitch through the wall there. They've still got to sort out a few of those camera angles by the looks of it. But yeah, so this is a video that a lot of people have asked me for, but I've put off a little bit because of the kind of development nature, especially on the Airbus A320. And the fact that more and more is becoming available for it, that it changes so much. And what I'm going to do is click ready fly, because that's what's starting to bug me a bit now. But yeah, so it's essentially it's been developing at such a good rate that they keep adding things to it, and I've been waiting until it's kind of stabilised a little bit, because obviously then there'll be things that are in there that weren't in the previous one update and stuff like that, especially if you're using the fly-by-wire A32NX, which is what I use. But I think it's at a stage now where the main flight plan we can go through and kind of give you the idea on it all. It will change, and then I will have to do a revisit to this, but it'll get you guys essentially working from scratch. It is the FMC or MCDU in this particular case. I'll be doing another video which will be up tomorrow, which will be the FMC side of things, so the 747 or 787 equivalent. Okay, now those ones are a little bit more basic still, so they shouldn't be as complicated. But if you do find that you are using the default plane, there might be some steps which aren't there for you, in which case just move on to the next one. Okay, so let's go to the intro, and when you come back I will have this plane powered up. Okay. Okay guys, so I've only essentially got the power to it. We're still on external power. We haven't turned on the APU or anything like that, because I'm just basically getting it to a stage where we can go through the MCDU or MCDU, as I'll start calling it throughout the episode, and show you how to set it up. I have put down for the ILS, as you can see down here, to align. That's basically just because of the fact that we need we want to be able to see the ILS aligning as well for checking it and stuff like that. Okay, so just so you know, as you can see, still on external power, batteries on, and not really done anything else. I've turned the dome light on because it's night time at the moment, and I wanted it to be lit up so you guys can see. We're currently at LAX, so Los Angeles International Airport, and the flight plan, I noticed somebody on one of the Facebook pages had put on that they were struggling to do a flight plan to San Francisco. So what I've decided to do is to see if I can get a flight plan set up for San Francisco from scratch. So as it stands here, it's telling me that it's been lost. This is the MCDU or MCDU, and this is the first page you will get introduced with if you haven't set anything up. And to be honest, even if you have, normally this comes up first. It's telling you what type of engine your current plane has, in which case the LEAP engine is the only one that's currently active. Now, it does say what your active data is. This is useful if you haven't updated the Navigraph stuff, which I have. Now, for some reason, this doesn't get influenced by the latest data put in. They haven't quite got this screen being interactive fully yet. But, which is what I mean when I'm saying that they're constantly changing it, so things keep changing. But it's good because it means you know that the 4th of May to 4th of July is the data. If you were using SimBrief for your tooling, which is what I've done to set up this flight plan, or to give me the waypoints I need for the flight plan, that will be the data you want it to go to, because then that means it's working on what your current Microsoft Flight Simulator data, waypoint data is using, or Navigraph data. Okay, so what you want to do is go to your Init page, which is your main setup page for the first stage. Now, what you have here is a company route, so if you have a specific company route set, you can put them in there, and then it will automatically load in all the information straight away without you needing to. Let's say, for instance, if you're with Wizz Air, for example, or Delta Airways, and they have this particular plane is used on a similar route all the time, they can have preloaded loads of company routes. Let's say LAX to San Francisco is the exact same route, and this plane does that route more often than not. They could have it in company route, and then you just put that in there, and it will automatically set up the rest of it for you for the route planning stage anyway. But in this case, we're going to do it from scratch. So we're doing KLAX dash, and I think it is KSFO if I remember, for San Francisco Airport. Interesting. So you'll get that screen which says it's coming up with none. I've not had that one come up before, so this might be the issue that that person was talking about. If you click return, it has put it in there. Now it's automatically picked up my flight number, which is what I have essentially put in the world map on the initial, but normally that would be blank and you'd put that in as well. If you want to change it, I don't know if it'll let you. Yep, you can change it if you wanted to. But because I've got it set up as default on that in Microsoft Flight Simulator's kind of settings, it automatically puts that in. But we want to go to IRS in it and align on the reference, so we'll confirm that. So doing that, that just gets us set to KLAX, and it just helps with the alignment essentially in regards to putting the two together. Right. Now we do have an alternative route, I believe, on here. So I'm just gonna, what I'm gonna do is I will put up on the screen the different, what's the word I'm looking for? The different pages I'm looking at to get the information that I'm doing. So you guys will know essentially where I'm looking, what I'm looking for, and where to get the data. So if you want to put it in manually, you can do. Now just bear in mind that each software that you use may be slightly different, so you do have to account for the fact that the software may show you slightly different pages to what I see. So my alternative airport is KONT. So what I'm going to do is put that in to the alternative. And that's just in case if we do hit any issues, it will automatically, we can automatically divert to the alternative route for it. Okay, so I don't think the wind is set up yet on it. It's not. My cost index, I know, is going to be a cost index of 5, which is relatively low, which is pretty good. And my cruising altitude is at flight level, so you put FL for flight level 340. Now flight level is what they use in aviation in regards to working out an altitude, because obviously it can vary slightly depending on the altimeter settings and air pressure. So what they do is when you hit a certain altitude, you go onto what's called a standard air pressure, which I believe, if I go to the top, is 2992. Or if you want to go into hectopascals, 1013. Okay, and what that means is when you get to a certain altitude, no matter what the air pressure is, they just use a standard of 2992. And because of that, that means your flight level will be 3400 or 340, which is 34,000 feet. But because the air pressure is different all over the world, you might not actually be flying at that level. Because if the air pressure is a lot higher than that, your altitude will vary, and the same as a lot lower, it'll be going the other way. So if you actually have I can give you an example on here. You can see my altitude is showing as nearly 120. Now if I start bringing this down, all of a sudden now you can see the altitude's going into the minus figures, and if I go the other way, it will start going into the plus figures and going higher. So the air pressure determines what altitude you're actually at because of the way the instruments pick up the air pressure to determine altitude and stuff like that, or to help the instruments to calibrate to know what altitude you're at. Okay, so in doing that, they use flight level. So it means if, say, I was at flight level 34.0 and somebody on the other side of the world was at flight level 34.0, chances are, if we stayed at that exact level all the way round and air pressure wasn't a factor, at that point, once we managed to meet, we would actually be at 2 different altitude levels, because at that moment in time his air pressure and my air pressure will probably be different, which then changes what altitude you're at. I know that's probably more information than you really need, but I just wanted to give that a little bit of a idea of why they use flight levels, as opposed to saying your altitude needs to be 3,400 or 34,000 feet and whatnot. So that when it comes below a certain one, I think it's around 10,000 feet, give or take. It may vary in different areas, but you'll actually have set the correct altimeter setting, in which case they will then start giving you actual altitudes, because it will be accurate at that stage. Whereas once you go onto the standard altimeter setting, you're not completely accurate, so in regards to your height, because obviously it's using the standard pressure. Okay, so what we're going to do is, my flight level according to my details is 34,000, so 340. That's the thousands, that's the thousands there, and then if it's just 40, it'd be 4,000, and then if it's there, so you can kind of get an idea. 040 would be 4,000, 340 is 34,000, 140 is 14,000. Now it does have a temp there, but I've noticed when I click on just that at the moment, it automatically fills in the temp, but you can see now it has put in my flight level, and the ILS is also set up. Now so that's now been set up there, and if I go across, you've got your 0 fuel balance. Again, if you click on that, it will automatically fill it in. My block fuel weight I can get from here, and I know my block fuel weight is 23.45, so 23.45 is 23.5, so 23.5. There we go, put that in, and it's now filled out the rest of the page as much as it can do at the moment on what is set up. So now you're back in your Init page. If I go to flight plan, you can see I've got my from and my to, and there is literally no information other than that. So what we need to do is start adding in waypoints. So what we're going to do is start by adding in the waypoints directly. I'm just quickly checking the other pages, because you would end up setting these, but for this initial flight plan, this is where we're going with. Okay, now this does differ from the FMC in a Boeing, which is why I've got to do a different video to this, so they're not directly comparable, because this page is different when you're on the Boeing. On your flight plan, which is that button there, F plan, it gives you your route. As you can see, we've only got KLX, deceleration, and KSFO, because we haven't put anything in yet. So what we need to do is start putting in the flight plan as per what I've set up on SimBrief, or whatever program you've used. It will give you what your waypoints are. So this is how we would manually enter it in. My first waypoint, I will quickly, by the way, just flick up the details, probably in the screen size over here. So if I move this over slightly, I can have it showing here, and then I'll go into it. Now the first one is DO CKR. So I'm going to put that in and click there. It's now put it in. I then need to go to EV OSE and put that. I'll put that in right. Oh, sorry, I've put the wrong thing in. I'll try it again. EVOSE. That's now in. You'll see this decel will move as it goes on, because as it works out the new waypoints, it's starting to move it down to where it needs the decel to be. Then we go to MKGEE. What you do is you always click on the destination one when you're adding it in, and it will stick it in at that point. You see it's moving there. Now the reason it didn't show straight away, because this is as much on the page you can do, and it always has the destination at the bottom. So if I click up, you'll see now that moves everything up along. So don't worry if when you click it doesn't look like anything's happened. Wait a second or two, and you'll see things move, because that destination is always there. If you need to, just move these down a bit until you get the end of plan, and you'll just see it moving down if you do want it to be a bit quicker so it doesn't catch you out. Now, next one is DARRK. There you go, that's in the decel move. So that's what you got to be sure. So like I say, that's always showing. So by doing, if you have that end of plan always showing in your screen, you'll know it is always going to show you as it updates, as opposed to waiting for the decel to move or anything like that. So just make sure you've got it in and you're not hitting any issues. SUMMR is my next one. There you go. Can move that down a couple, put that straight to the top. OLOFF, so OLOFF. RIZIRIZ IN. SPLNT. Right, one thing you'll notice now on the screen, on the list on the left, you'll see the next one says TOC. That's basically just saying that's our top of climb. So that's not a waypoint, that is just where it expects our top of climb to be. So we miss out that particular one. Again, I'm just move this down just so you can see. And I'm going to go straight to STOKD. So STOKD. That's then gone in. And that is essentially the KZOA. You just ignore that on this particular one. You only want the one which has all the data that goes across the side, essentially. So you want to make sure it's got all the information on it, whereas that KO, the KZOA, just doesn't give you all the information. It just goes to 150 and that's it. So you can ignore that one. You go to the next page, it's now showing your approach vector stage, and what we want is SERFR. So there you go. So now you've got all your waypoints in. Click back on flight plan, and if we move this to plan, start going through them. I've got a, sorry, one thing to remember, I haven't done it yet. When you put it in, you get these amber things in. So that's a good example. As you can see, it's gone straight to it, and that's just to show you that until you insert, all these are temporary. If I click that, it will delete them all. If I click that, it will insert them all. They've now all gone like a kind of turquoisey colour, and you can see now the flight plan's set. So if I go back to it and do flight plan and go through, it is now in this screen up here going through the flight plan that I've just put in, and we're just checking to make sure there's no irregularities. There you go, so you can see the flight plan's all there. There's no loop-de-loops or random zigzags randomly thrown about the place. It is all just in there as it should be, which is good, and that's what you want. Okay, so that bit essentially is set up there, but that's how you essentially put in your flight plan into the FMC directly, and you can then see it is now inputted all on there. Okay, so if we go back to ARC, it's got that showing. The radio nav hasn't picked anything up because, as per, you've got to put in your information. Now on my flight plan, now this is something you would normally get from the ATC. Request IFR clearance for instrument flight plan, which is this flight plan. If I click that,
Los Angeles clearance delivery Delta 2020 IFR to San Francisco, ready to copy.
Delta 2020 is cleared to San Francisco Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 25 right climb and maintain 12,000 feet. Departure frequency is 125.2 squawk 4224.
we're just going to go through the acknowledgements.
Delta 2020 cleared to San Francisco Airport as filed. Take off runway 25 right climb and maintain 12,000 feet. Departure on 125.2 squawk 4224.
Delta 2020 readback is correct. Contact ground on 129.5 when ready to taxi.
So there you go. So as opposed, if you set it up for the world map, you won't get the instrument IFR one, you'll just get clearance for IFR flight. If you're doing it direct from the FMC or MCDU, then you want to do as per instrument FP or instrument flight plan, and in that way it's picked up everything I've put in here and it's now telling the ATC what we're doing, and that way you can do it so you don't actually have to set anything up in the world map at all. It's another way of doing it. I did wonder, this is the first time I've done it directly in here, on whether the ATC would be intelligent enough for us to work it direct through here if they were linked, or whether, because I hadn't put anything in the world map, I wouldn't be able to use the in-game ATC. So you can do. Obviously, if you're using something like VATSIM or is it IVAO, then it'll be logged with them anyway, so they'll have all the information directly. So which doesn't matter at that stage because you're not using the default ATC. So they've now told us that we're taking off from 25 right. So I can go back into flight plan. Just going to go back to see. So back into flight plan. Click on from LAX. Departure, and it was 25 right. I'm just going to insert that so it picks it up, and it's now got my departure from 25 right. And although it hasn't inputted where we're going directly yet, I'm going to have a quick look and see what runway my flight plan was originally set. Now this, when it comes to the destination, you would normally set this now when the ATC tells you which runway to go into. Okay, I mean, if I went through the information that it says on my plan, it'd be telling me that the arrival is ILS 19 left, but I'm leaving that because I'd leave that to the ATC to tell me as we're coming in on the flight plan. So there we go. So that's essentially that all set up. It does still have the standard line here because it's picking up the direct line of where we were going to on the Init page. Obviously that's all been changed now. I don't know a direct way yet to remove that amber line for direct line of sight myself. If anybody does know, feel free to put it in the comments below to help out anybody else that might be looking at the video. But essentially now your autopilot will start following that green line. Okay, so now that's been put in, you can see the Init page is all set. We've got that side all set now. Perf page is still incomplete at the moment, but it's got your climb, your cruise, your destination, and your approach, and you go around. Okay, so just quickly go through the pages to check. The one thing now is it won't have the ILS frequency because I haven't put in a runway we're landing on. If I did choose a Pacific runway, it would put it in there automatically, as you've seen in my previous video, which was the ILS landings. I will also do one at a later stage for RNAV and the different types of landings, so you guys know how to do each individual one. But this is one that I've been meaning to release as quickly as possible, but because of the changes I've been kind of pulling it off, and I kind of feel now's the time to start really looking at it. What you can do now is from your flight plan you can start putting in essentially the flight plan altitudes that it gives you. Now you may find ATC along the route will give you a different plan, but it just helps you have something put in for the actual MCDU or FMC to aim for, if you know what I mean, and not go across. So for instance, you can put constraints and speed constraints. So you put, if you know it's a constraint on certain areas, you can do it. Now I know that it wants my flight level to be 590. Sorry, get that right. It wants my altitude to be 039. So if I put that in there, 3,900 feet. So the speed side isn't implemented yet. So all you can do at the moment is put on the altitude that it's telling you. And to be honest, the speed constraints that sim brief give you aren't always accurate to what it should be. So what I would suggest is leaving the speed constraints and taking note of what the ATCs say to begin with, and then what I'll do is once it's been updated I'll let you know how to input that side of stuff as well. Okay, so once you've done that, you click return. You can now see it's got it in there. Now we do this for each one. Make sure you've always got what's on there cleared, otherwise it'll start messing around with it. But if you go through each one, you could potentially do this as you set up the waypoints individually. Me personally, I like to do all the waypoints, then do all the altitude, and it just makes it easier. Now I'm going to show you again on this side where I'm getting the information from, so you should see it there, and it's highlighting what it is. You can see now I've gone over 10,000. It has changed from physical altitude to flight level. So if I go back, you see all the others were in thousands. That one's now flight level 10,500 feet, and the reason for that is that's when you're going to be in standard mode, so it won't be an exact altitude. So as you can see, it's now creating a profile for when it wants us to get down and be ready. So in here is 070. So this descent profile should then help you to get down quicker to the runway, as opposed to how the ATC do it, or especially the ones that are involved, the automatic one in the game, because everybody's probably has realised now the ATC in the game will make you stay at that flight level and then try to drop you down, or make you go down, up, down, up, down, up on the bloody flight level, and then at the last minute it tries to make you drop like a stone, which you just couldn't do, and 9 times out of 10 you'll either miss your approach or you're doing stupid manoeuvres to get there. Whereas at least doing it this way and using the data from SimBrief or whichever flight planning software you've got, or wherever you've got your waypoints from, if it gives you a altitude profile, if you put it in, you can see we're going up and then it's bringing us back down at nice intervals. And if we go back to plan, you can see from EDDYY it wants us at 7,000, and that's still 20 nautical miles out. So from there we want to be at 7,000 when we hit there, which still gives us plenty of time to descend down to 5,000 or 3,000, depending on what the glide slope approach is showing for that runway. Easily can go down 4,000 feet. Okay. If you do click the constraints button, it should be telling you now everything we've put in. It's telling you what it wants us to be at according to the constraints we've just put in. Now obviously, if you're using VATSIM or IVAO, or even if you are using this and you want to follow what the main simulator's ATC says, you can take this off manage and then set it directly to what you want, or if you double click it, it will automatically set it to what it wants you to go to. So that's always something you've got to take into plan. This is the stuff in the flight plan is what you're aiming for, but it may change when you're physically in flight from the ATC. Now, this, like I say, the speed, it won't let you pull in at the moment. Once it does, I'll make you guys aware, and I will revisit this as it becomes more in depth. And from there, obviously, you've seen how to do your destinations and everything, because I've shown you that, and that automatically fits in the ILS nav data as well. So if just for the sake of completing it, if I said ILS 19, just do that as temporary. If I go into rad nav, it's now already in there. The rest of the stuff is automatically put in as you're doing it. So if we go through the pages now, just do a quick double check. Let's just clear this out. Obviously this information is stuff you'll be getting from when you're taking off. 9 times out of 10 you're always using flaps 1. Now you would, on the next update for the fly-by-wire, the NX version, they are saying they're bringing in the flight bag, and I'm hoping that flight bag will do what Tolis and Zebo does for X-Plane, and it will give you the calculator to work out your thrust. Now I've generally, if I don't know, I always just put it as 0.1 up, and then I'd put that in there, and then that calculates in the FMC what flaps you're using and what you want your trim set to. So I've told I want it 1 up, so I go up 0.1. Now as it stands, the FMC on this page isn't fully animated. I do find this does change depending on the airport I choose, but it doesn't seem to change depending on the data I put in. So for whatever reason it's not completely set up correctly yet. And then again, if you looked at my ILS approaching and stuff like that in regards to the FMC, this stuff would be done on the approach videos that I've got out, because this will vary depending on what you're doing on ILS. You need to get the QNH that you'd get from the ATC on approach, the temperature you'd also get, and the wind you'd get, and so all this information you would get from your ATC on the approach, and then this information is done on the charts as per what I showed you on the previous video in regards to approaches. So if you want to know how to use this page, I'd refer you to that video. I'll put a link in the description and also put a little marker at the top for you. But this essentially is the flight plan now been set up using the MCDU in Microsoft Flight Simulator. If you have any questions, please put a comment in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. If there's anything you want to see, please comment and put it in, and I'll happily look at trying to make a video on that for you as well. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video. This has been CT Tech Gaming. It's been Microsoft Flight Simulator MCDU tutorial, and I'll catch you in the next one.